Well, it seems awfully loud. I don't mean to be that close, probably.
You sound good.
Is it great?
Maybe the monitors are hot.
Wait till I start singing. You're gonna rue those words, Jim.
I'm waiting.
That should have sounded terrible at the end. What was wrong with what I did at the end there? I've already turned this into tomorrow's 9 o'clock class, right? Those chords can go together. That sucks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. All right, songwriters. Tomorrow, that's your progression. Yeah. Well, you know, people do the wrong things. Way too many major chords in that minor song. Use them all. How many major chords are in a minor key?
3.
I just used 5. And got away with it. This song went from A minor to D to E to A minor, G, F, C, E. I used 6. Is that it? It was C, D, E, F, G. That was it. There were only 5. And they were all in the key of A minor. Yeah. Yeah. It's that damn melodic minor scale. But we're not here to tax people's brains just yet. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know why that Fleetwood Mac song is going to be. Usually when we start these things, I kind of have a... No, I'm never going to play it. Wait a minute. Yeah, let me rethink that. I usually have information I want to give you, and I gave you most of it a little while ago. There was something crucial I forgot. And that is for the breakout sessions that we're doing tomorrow, where you guys will be broken up into groups and rotating. I really want to encourage you to do audio recordings of these on your phone. Like, just put your phone down on the table so that you have a record of it, because we're not going to be videoing all of that. And so if you want to, document your own session with Mike and me and Doug and Jim, put a little voice recorder on your phone would be a really good idea. So. Anyway, welcome to our first Spring IGC. I'm, as you know, you already got the early rundown of what's going on here. And what tonight is really for is to just kind of introduce the teachers, so get to know a little bit more about them and some of their pros and cons and stuff. So, most of them are pro, but not always. So. And my plan is to usually get up here and play a few tunes, and I frequently just, if anybody has anything they want to hear, I'd be glad to give it a try, even if I don't really know it. Except there's one I won't play. I'm not going to play Rihanna. So just don't erase that from your memory. And so I don't know, anything anybody wants to hear? Well, I've got a guitar in my hand and I'm commanding the stage.
Here comes Blackbird.
Blackbird. Let's do a Beatles medley right there. I usually teach it is not what I'm doing right now. I use it as a beginning finger picking song, having people do this. Then I make them analyze the chords, and I never see them again. Anyway, as you know, this sounds a lot like Blackbird, right? And I've never gone to the trouble of doing what I usually do with songs, which is figure out how to play the melody at the same time. And just because everybody does that, it's getting old. But I use that as a beginning finger picking song to get people used to using their thumb, alternating back and forth between two strings. And the second note you play in that always is the open third string, the G string. And, but if you were listening carefully, which I know you're all listening carefully, sorry. But at the beginning it sounded a little bit different, and it sounded more like what Paul McCartney really played. And that's because, that's not what he did, because he didn't take lessons from me, and he regrets it to this day. But, so he could have been so much better. But he developed a style of pinching these chords, this beautiful progression, and then lightly brushing the strings with his nails. And he does this all with one finger. He does this. You know, using his index finger to brush them. I don't like that. It's too much work for the index finger. And then sometimes he would use it both for down and up. Okay? So when I do this, what I teach for strumming with your fingers is to use your middle fingers, these two, for the downstrokes, and this one for an upstroke. Just to have a little bit of different sound in it. First you get nail sound on one and flesh on the other. So what he would do is more like this. So it goes from being a beginning finger picking song to kind of an advanced percussive strumming song, you know. So when people ask, do you have students that's been with you for like 40 years? Some of our 40-year students are starting to work on that. Here Comes the Sun's a different story, a different problem, because I did bring a capo up with me, but Dave's got one handy, I'm sure. And, what I probably need is a pick then too. Yeah, I guess so. Ooh, okay, I'll make it work.
Oh, no, I got to pick one somebody gave you.
Pick the IGC one?
No, it's,
That'll work. So, George Harrison, when he played this, somebody was asking my friend Mike about flat picking and stuff. I'm like, what flat picking is? And it's obviously different than finger picking. But first thing about Here Comes the Sun is I teach it as a finger picking song. I use it as an intermediate level finger picking song where I want people to be able to keep a steady bass going back and forth like this and then play the melody. Sounds pretty much like it, you know, but George did this capo of the 7th fret, which put it in a whole different key. That's part of tomorrow's lesson too. I was thinking there in the key of D, and I'm going to come up here at the 7th fret. You hear that sounds a whole lot more like the record, right? And it's because he capoed it way up here. Putting a capo at the 7th fret is a bit of about the limit on the guitar. What is it? Cats in the Cradle, I think, was done at the 8th originally. But he started doing it a little bit lower later. Oh, and something I just showed, a Lyle Lovett song, the G, that's something in G. If I had a vote, yeah, is one that's way up there. I think maybe even a 9er. I think it's 9, because I think the notes were a G chord. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so I did the same thing with Here Comes the Sun as I do with Blackbird. It's like I have people start it the way as a finger picking song, and because it's approachable. George Harrison played it with a flat pick, which means it's much more difficult that way because you're trying to pick out melody notes and bass notes. studying flat picking to knock that one off. But I guess this brings me to something that Keith has been brought up, or has brought up repeatedly around here, and that is that this, my teaching style has sort of evolved after over 50 years, 55 years of doing this, and into taking songs that people like and know and want to play, and modifying them just to whatever level they need for what they're playing, but also sometimes just taking a little bit of it. And there's somebody in this room right now who's reluctantly working on this. You don't even know what this is, do you, Dave? You didn't listen to Led Zeppelin enough. Anyway, that little ditty, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, is what it's called from the first Led Zeppelin album, I think. Yeah. Is just a great exercise for people to learn. And, most people our age recognize it. Dave's the youngster here, and yeah.
I think if I heard the vocals, I would recognize it.
Yeah. I'll sing this thing. What the heck?
Neil, were you flat picking that or finger picking that?
Finger picking. Yeah. It would be a great finger picking exercise. Really good finger picking, flat picking exercise. But the song I teach instead for that is this. So I make everybody learn 2 measures of Don't Feel Greedy, no more. So, anyway, so yeah, that's I've just, kind of evolved into just playing, loving these tunes that I grew up with, and selectively using bits and pieces of them as exercises instead of like the classical guitar approach of, well, let's spend 4 years, 4 years meditating first, then you go talk to the Dalai Lama about, you ask him the meaning of life kind of stuff, and which is the classical guitar approach of, let's see, until I get that tremolo right. Tremolo is in really terrible shape. Save that story for another day. Anyway, so I'm almost running out of things to say or play, but I think I'll play a tune that most of you probably know, and many of you probably heard me play before. As you know, I like to take songs that are generally not played by one guitar and then turn them into solo guitar pieces. Things like this, right? I'm not going to play the whole thing probably right now. Because we've all heard this before, except Dave. So what we're hearing here is a bass part, and a keyboard part, and then a vocal. Anyway, that's, of course, Alan Parsons' tune, Eye in the Sky, and great tune. So, yes. Whitebird was another one.
Let's hear that.
Let's hear Whitebird. We'll see how far I can get into this. The intro is the hardest part, it's in C. Oh, it's quick. You should skip this part. It's in C. Why didn't you guys tell me? So here I'm just playing one melody, right, and one voice. And I think I've got harmony in this one. I'll skip that verse and that one's next. Oh, then there's a chorus. I'll play it differently the second time. It seems like you're try to bridge. There's a guitar solo. Well, I had that down once, as you can probably tell. But
It's amazing you can remember something that complicated and bring it back in real time.
you know what? A lot of that is remembering the theory behind the song. You know, like all of a sudden I remember, oh, guitar solo. Oh, it's in a different key. It goes to C minor. It was a little bit like that. So, yeah, so really the more theory you know, the easier it is to reconstruct stuff if you understand like how they even wrote it that way, you know, and so these are some of the puzzles that I just love working on when I'm figuring out guitar music and stuff. But it's also what makes it seem like I remember everything I've ever done, which I don't. I'm recreating it on this, rebuilding it each time. So
when you remember the chord structure, or you then kind of improvising the melodic thing, kind of, it's not like note, or is it note specific? Or you just kind of make it up within the chords progression?
Well, like in that case, I'm trying to play the melody, the vocal melody that was being sung, and it was, there were little glitches in it sometimes because it's like I couldn't remember. Oh, I played the C chord in the wrong place. I can't reach the note I need, or something.
But that, I can understand, okay, chord theory and so on, but remembering every melodic note, unless you're kind of hearing the melody in your head, like one note ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm singing the song a measure ahead or something.
Silently, fortunately.
Yeah. The only thing, like when I'm doing Zoom lessons with students and we start playing together, that's a little bit of what's happening. So it doesn't work out. So, let's see. Any other things that I probably can't remember? Which one? Okay, let me think. Oh, it opens up the harmonics too, huh? There's all that kind of weird stuff.
Fisherman?
Oh, great. Now we're getting to stuff that I know I'll never forget. Sure. This is the kind of song I would play. This may be seem weird because I would tell students when you're getting up to play in front of people, if you're going to play, god awful stuff that is like the hardest thing you've ever played, start with something easy, And for me, there were a couple tunes that were my like razzle dazzle, but not as hard as they look. Or songs that I've been playing for 30 years, and I could whip through them. This is a terrible way to preface this song. Give me another shovel. Like an example of one of those would be Windy and Warm. So that's something I feel like I could play, after a couple bottles of whiskey, and it would sound better than ever had. Bermuda Triangle Exit. Seven Grossman tune that I played enough and taught enough students that that'd be something I feel really comfortable opening up with. Instead of the song I was thinking about playing tonight, which I may not even get to, but no, I will. I'll end with a pretty cool one, I think. But I will tackle Fisherman. teens trying to figure out some of the god-awful songs of the day. This was before the Fishermen was out. So there were 3 songs that Mike Mullins and I, as teenagers, were like taken by, and we just couldn't figure out how they really went. And the sheet music these was not available anywhere. What's that?
No YouTube.
Yeah, no YouTube. And I already played one of them. Blackbird was one of them. It's, when I was like 12 or 14 and Blackbird came out, it's like, what the hell is he doing? Yeah, that record is scratched to pieces. Yeah. And there were 2 others that I'd almost throw the Fisherman into one of those because it came out a little bit later. But the other 2 were Capo still hanging, but I'm not going to do it anyway. Dying to play and had no idea how we were going to learn it, And the other, who could guess what the other was? Classic tune from 1968 that every acoustic guitar player wanted to play. Anyway, that was it. So it was pretty cool when music started coming out for those 20 or 30 years later. It was all still wrong, but it was a lot closer than what we had found before. So,
when did they start having casts for these songs? No,
the first book I remember getting that had tab in it was actually a James Taylor songbook. It had tab in the back of the book to things like. And they usually only have like maybe the intros of the songs. It was really your normal piano book from those days, where they had it, and of course that's written in the wrong key because he capos it up to the 3rd fret. He's thinking in A, and that really puts it in what key? C. So the piano music is in C, and then the guitar music that they have for that has the chords to play in C, and and nobody gets. Anyhow, it was a step in the right direction, but it still was.
I'm curious though. Is it better to force yourself to learn by ear, or is it like a cheating shortcut? Are you losing if you just go to tab?
One of the things about the early tab, like Stephen Grossman had a lot of books that had really cool tab in it. I remember learning. The only way you could learn things like that, aside from having the tab, was you had to buy his record too, because you had to know how you had to be able to hear the song. And his teacher that tab, but that was still also pretty early 70s, about 73, 74. Some ragtime books came out, and
Did you ever have a teacher early on who wrote things out in numbers, or kind of like his own way of doing things?
No, because we were just talking about this last night. When I started taking lessons from Bill Monday when I was 8 or 9 years old, it was the Mel Bay classic guitar method. Learn how to read notes from day one. Lesson 2 was. creating Yankee Doodle note for note with all these notes with ledger lines and stuff. You know,
My guy was, his name's Cecil Jones. He taught Ferguson's music.
Mm.
And, you know, the folders that keep the music in. So I was learning how to read from things, but then he would write on the inside of the folders his own numbers.
Secret
And it was
code.
kind of like tab.
Kind of like tab, yeah, like what frets you need to play on what string or
Sixth
something.
string, fifth string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's still in my brain. I don't look at it, I'm gonna get up there and talk about how I look at it. But that,
Not tonight, buddy. I just went over your time, by the way.
I'm doing that.
Well, let me play one or two more things, and we'll get the other teachers up here. So, but again, welcome to this camp. This is really excited about what we're going to be doing. I think everybody's going to have a great time. So there are two Pat Metheny tunes that I play that are, they're great tunes, but they're done by a band. Playing a lot of stuff. And of course, my challenge with all these things is turn them into a single guitar song. And so I'll play a little bit of one and I'll play the rest of the other. And the first one is one that he wrote in honor of James Taylor. That really was the whole song as far as how the song goes, but then we go into a long jam. That was what they would call the head of a jazz tune. And there's too much going on for me to now keep that going and then improvise over the top of it. So I keep that as a short one. But the other one, I'll shorten this one a little bit too, because then we got to get on with things. Is, you'll recognize it. Buffalo's Last Train Home, in case anybody didn't recognize it. Pretty cool tune, I guess. Yeah, thanks. Well, let's start having some of the other teachers come up. And first I got to tell you a little bit story about my old friend Mike, because Mike is joining us for the first time here at camp, and he, we sort of, I took lessons till I was about 12 years old, and I didn't find out until about 4 or 5 years ago why I stopped taking lessons, and it was because I talked to my old teacher, and we were just trading notes, and I said, Alan, why did I stop taking lessons? I don't remember what the deal was, And he goes, oh, you don't remember? You don't even know what happened? Because, it was 1968, I went to Vietnam. Oh my God, well, and luckily he came back, but by then I'd taken his job. So there was, I don't know, I never did touch base with him again for many, many years. When people ask about, well, how did you really learn to play like that? Well, a lot of it was that from that age on and through high school, I met some other great musicians, and we learned a lot of stuff together. And later, when I was like 19 or 20, I was teaching in a store and got really to be good friends with a classical player named John Dimmick. And that's when I started playing Renaissance music and bottle lutes, and started arranging Scheherazade for 2 guitars, and we just went all nuts. And but before that, I went to this summer camp just down the road from here, Echo Mountain Ranch. So when I was 12, and I remember watching the moon landing there the next year, which was the summer of '69. And because I remember also what was unusual about that is they never let us watch TV at camp.
Black and white.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, we're there at lunch, and there's this black and white TV out on the dish counter or something, and it's like we're all watching the moon landing, And my sister went to this camp first, and my younger sister, and all my sisters are real, but still, they're. The next year, Mom found ways for me to go too, but the deal was that I went as what they call a camper worker. We were dishwashers, so we got in for like half price or something. Well, the rest of the dishwashing crew was Mike Mullins, and I believe it was Chris Clark. Wasn't he like a dishwasher too?
Yeah, there were a number of guitar players.
Yeah, it seemed like all the guitar players came from poor families.
Hard to play with dish pan hands.
Yeah, so I'm washing dishes with these guys, and then that night I find out that they're the campfire guys, and we're singing House the Rising Sun or Today, and there's a young man that I know, just all these camp tunes.
Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Peter, Paul, and Mary stuff. Oh yeah. And so I was just a year or two younger than them, but they kind of accepted me as part of the music crew. And when camp ended, Mike and I started just staying in touch, and he lived a little ways up the peninsula, and I remember we started spending weekends at each other's house and listening to music and figuring songs out together. I distinctly remember a couple of things that are sort of, one was we were in the back of a Greyhound bus one time going to or from one of the other person's houses, and Mike whips out his guitar and says, "Have you heard this? Brand new." He says, "What the heck? That is so cool. What is that?" So Stairway to Heaven had just come out. That was probably 1970 then, I think. And yeah, Mike had already figured it out, and so. And the other thing that I remember distinctly about Mike was we had just gotten after the gold rush, yeah, and because we'd spent a lot of time at camp playing jamming all night. Neil Young songs, right? We're singing at the top of our God, I'm saying, and of course. I don't think, but maybe we did.
That was pretty much the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, right, and then one of us would play the chords for a little while. Mike might play the chords like that, and I might do something. Why didn't none of these notes work? So, but So yeah, we'd stay up late at night in camp out sites at the place, like the tree house, or this little place by the brook called Hilton on the Rocks, and play guitar all night. And I distinctly remember one huge thing that helped me out, that we got after the Gold Rush, and we started figuring out the songs. Of course, it opens up with, this was an easy one to figure out, except this tune down. So the opening tune is, of course, Tell Me Why, and then we do stuff like, Only Love Can Break Your Heart, and, one of those Harvest. Yeah, Heart of Gold from Harvest. But
There's stuff from, Cinnamon Girl.
from the earlier round, yeah, Cinnamon Girl, yeah. And I already heard Southern Man, because one of the first concerts I went to was in June of 1970, just before that album came out, and saw Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young at Oakland Coliseum. And they were playing, this was like the tour that they recorded 4-Way Street on. And so one of their big tunes that they played there was Southern Man, so that was the first time I heard it, and it's still on this bootleg cassette I made. I walked into that concert with my little Panasonic cassette recorder, and still have this tape,
Lost mine.
Yeah. And so, anyway, so after Gold Rush comes out and I see Southern Man songs, I says, oh great, now we can figure out what the chords are. Well, the damn thing is nothing but piano in the beginning. And so I'm saying, Mike, how are we going to figure these chords out? And he says, well, just listen to the bass. The piano doesn't mean anything. So all of a sudden, it's in D minor. So anyhow, I'm sure you don't even remember telling me that, but it was brilliant advice. And I've told it to thousands of people since, so it's all your fault.
Well, glad to help.
I'd like to have Mike come up, we're going to play a tune, and then he'll tell you a little bit more about his life in music and
So great to be here. I've been at Neil's and I have been friends going over half a century, and I moved to Santa Barbara when I was 21, and Neil and I kind of lost that. That's an expensive cake I almost threw away. Anyway, we sort of have been on and off over the years, but this is the first TV event I've ever been to, so it's really fun to be here. Talking about doing this, but for a long time I was going, I'm just not playing much guitar these days. I mostly mandolin, but more recently I've been picking up a guitar interviews. I'm working on a project now where I'm doing mostly guitar, and it's kind of a bluegrass and Americana kind of oriented thing. So he said, why don't you come teach at my camp? And I'm like, okay. I'm in.
So, about an hour just before we came in here, he was bringing his stuff in, and I said, "Do you want to play something together tonight? I mean, we haven't played together like probably since camp, really, in terms of,
Well, yeah, you went into the stratosphere with the guitar, and I kind of got stuck in one gear for a while. And then I diverged into bluegrass music, and then I moved out of town. So
yeah, so there was a lot of things.
When Neil started playing the lute, I was like, I just left me in the weeds. He's playing all this Bach and all this ragtime stuff, and I was just so like, wow, it's so beyond my pay grade.
So, we were just, I was just kind of in here doing a sound check. Oh, so I asked him, I said, hey, do you want to play something together tonight? Even though we haven't like never done, we could of course do Down by the River, but we could probably do away with that. And so I was actually just doing a little sound check. I just kind of came in here to plug things in and see what's going on. And he kind of had begged off of playing anything, and I said, well, maybe tomorrow night or Saturday, Sunday we can play something like Grandfather's Clock, or just some kind of a Red River Valley, or something like that. And so I came in and just kind of grabbed my guitar and just started messing around with a few chords, kind of like I did at the beginning of tonight's ramble. And it sort of morphed into a tune that I have on an album, but I hadn't thought about for 5 or 10 years probably. And then he picks up his mandolin and starts noodling along with me, and it's like, it was, so anyway.
Yeah.
Let me start the chords a little bit first and see what happens. And I'll take the melody first. Do you know the chords?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 more of these before the melody starts then. Okay, so I got the melody. Anyway, I'm going to leave you in the hands of my lifetime friend, Mike Mullins.